Hi everyone, I'm Jamie Delane Watson from jamiedelanewatson.com, and today I'm going to be talking about how I shoot in manual mode. So if you're brand new to shooting in manual and you'd like to learn how to do it, this is the video for you. So to start, there's three different settings your camera can be on. You can either be manual, you can be aperture priority, shutter priority, or auto. That's 4 settings. There's 4 settings your camera can be on. So auto setting, the camera sets both the ISO and the shutter speed and the aperture for you. So if you set your camera to shutter priority, you set the ISO at whatever you would like, then you set the shutter whatever you would like, and the camera, to get the correct exposure, will set the aperture for you. On aperture priority mode, you set the ISO and the aperture where you would like, and the camera will do the work and set the shutter for you. So those are like semi-automatic settings for you. So what we're gonna do today though is learn how to shoot on full manual. So full manual means you're setting the ISO, you're also setting the aperture, and then you're setting the shutter speed in that order. So I really recommend shooting in manual because you have full control of the settings on the camera and you're not relying on the camera to do any of the work for you. And it provides a lot more control, and it is the way to shoot if you're going to be a professional photographer. So when you're shooting in manual, the first thing to understand is ISO. ISO is the camera's sensitivity to the light. So it comes from film days, not that I ever shot film, but there used to be, or there still is, film that's ISO 100, 200, 400, 800, and 1600. Now the digital camera provides a lot more opportunity to shoot ISO at a whole bunch of different levels. So ISO 100 will be used on the brightest of sunny days, ISO 200 on a little bit less bright day, ISO 400 probably on a cloudy day, all the way up to ISO 1600 in a dark forest or indoor or a reception. So the longer you shoot, the sooner that you'll understand how to use ISO and which setting it should be at. So today we're in a forest, so I would probably be setting my ISO somewhere around the 800 mark or the 400 mark, depending on how far. We're not very deep into the forest right now, so the deeper you go in, the darker it would be, and the higher you would want your ISO to be. So the brighter the environment, the lower the ISO number, the darker the environment, the higher the ISO number. And it's very important that we set that first. So the next thing we're gonna set is the aperture. I always like to be shooting at an aperture not as low as possible, but very close to the lower end. So right now I'm shooting with the Canon 50mm 1.2, the professional L series lens. So with this lens, it can shoot as low as aperture 1.2. I prefer to be somewhere around a 2.0. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set my ISO, as I said, somewhere around 400 or 800. I'm then gonna set my aperture around the 2.0 mark where I wanna be. And then now the last thing I need to decide is what I want my shutter speed to be. So I'm gonna have to look through my camera and look at the meter to decide what that shutter speed is gonna be. So the next thing that brings us to is different ways of metering. Your camera has a built-in meter across the bottom, and it'll be -3 to +3 that you'll see there. And so it's really important that you learn how to read the scene and understand your meter. And this is one of the trickiest things to get when you're starting to shoot manual, but with practice, it really becomes, not that I'm bilingual, but it becomes like speaking another language, and it's something that you really don't even have to think about once you become fluent in it. It's just something you understand. So be encouraged that if you're shooting manual on a session at first and you get some shots that are like all black or all bright light, that's really normal and something you will improve with in time. All right, so there's 4 different metering modes. We're gonna go up here and press this button here, and then you can see the metering mode right there. So this is center weighted metering, which means it takes the whole frame, but it's gonna place a priority on what's in the center of the frame. So if we change this here, now it's metering for the entire frame. So every single object in the frame, all the light, it's given the same priority. The next one is spot metering. So it's gonna take, I think it's the center 3%, exactly the center what you're focused on, that is what it's gonna take the metering off of. And then this one is partial. So it's gonna take instead of 3%, I think it's about 10% in the center, and it's gonna focus the most on that while setting the metering. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys how I use manual mode with my beautiful models here. That's my brother Brandon and his wife Jen. I shot their wedding a few years ago. And so the last place we stopped at was the different forms of metering. So I always use the center weighted metering, where it reads the whole frame, but it gives a better priority to the center. And I find that the most helpful. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna test out some settings here. So I'm setting my ISO first, and I'm gonna look through the camera and see. So I'm at ISO 800, turns out. Then I have my aperture set to 1.8. And I see based on my metering that I'm gonna need to do 1/200th shutter speed. So I'm gonna test that there. And then I look at my histogram. It's a little bit brighter than I want, even though my meter was set right in the middle. And the reason for that is if you look around here, there's a lot of like dark elements in the photo. There's no bright light behind them. These trees are darker. And so that's why I actually need my meter to read a bit, kind of like at -1. So I'm gonna try this again at -1. So that means ISO 800, 1.8, and 1/500th shutter speed. So let's give this a try. Brandon, you can smile. And that's looking a lot better. So I love that exposure. So I'm gonna take just a few more shots here. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how I set my settings in a scene that's a little bit brighter. And so this one here, let's see what it's gonna work at. Okay, Jen and Brandon, hold one hand there again. So let's set this up to ISO 400 because it's a little bit brighter. It's gonna be at 2.0 again. And let's see here. I'm gonna want my metering to be about 1/3 of a stop above the middle mark because it is a bit brighter with the light coming through. So let's give this a try. Awesome, I like how that looks. Let's have you guys look at each other for a few there. Awesome. Perfect, and I love how those look. All right, so thanks so much for watching today, guys. If you want to see the results of some of these photos that I've been taking with all the settings included, what ISO I was at, aperture, shutter speed, all of that good stuff, head to jamiedelanewatson.com/manual mode, and there's something you can download there. So if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like it, comment. I love hearing from you guys. Thanks so much for watching.